Okay, so as you can probably hear, my voice isn't the best, but after a couple of weeks away and taking a cocktail of steroids and antibiotics over the last week, I'm finally feeling well enough to actually do a live stream once again. So I've not touched the simulator for maybe 10 days now. So it's going to be interesting to see how rusty I have become. We are on the ground at Dubai with the Inibuilds A350, and we're going to go and take a flight. So I've gone and prepared a flight plan over to Delhi from Dubai. So this is similar to the flight we were going to do that never quite happened with the A350. I ended up using the stock 747 instead. I'm not sure how much I'm going to talk en route, because the more I talk, the worse I get. So if I just sit quietly and get on with things, once we get into the cruise, I'll probably go and disappear to go and make a cup of tea. But yeah, it should be good. So prior to updating the simulator and updating the Inibuilds A350, so just looking at Martin's comment there on the live stream, yeah, I saw all of I'd already tried out most of the mixtures to solve my problems. It wasn't a throat infection, it was a lung infection, which is why I was coughing up so much rubbish. And so yeah, I went to the doctors and they immediately put me on an enormous amount of steroids and antibiotics. I was taking 8 steroids every morning, which turned it around. So yeah, they told me initially, like leaving the doctors, I had to go straight to the pharmacy, get the drugs, and take them immediately to start me on the road to recovery. But I don't know. It's obviously just a virus that's doing the rounds, and it got me. So we have the A350 here. So following updating the A350, I've emptied the WASM folders. So just so you know what that's all about. If I go and show you over here, in the app data local packages Microsoft local state WASM folder, if you look in the 2024 subfolder, the airplanes that use this will have subfolders in here, and there's the A350. Whenever you get a major update to an airplane, there are cached assets to do with the airplane in here that it's worth going and getting rid of. So I deleted all of those before I started the sim up with the new version. I made sure I'd updated the airplane and the simulator, emptied the WASM folder before I launched the simulator. So I was just following Inibuilds' own information about what to do. So the big risk about doing that is inside the airplane, we're going to have to go through and recalibrate the controllers. But we won't get to that until we've obviously got the aircraft systems up and running in this version of this airplane, because the calibration is in the flight management computer. So let's go and follow my own instructions. So the instructions I'm going to be following, I'll just show you this as well. So if we go to drive.google.com and I search for Airbus A350, and I'll find this. So this is the original copy of the procedure that you can buy if you go to my blog on the internet, so johnbeckett.substack.com. If you go into procedures and guides, you'll see there's all sorts of things in here that I've written up originally for my own use, but now I make available for others to download. So you can see there's the Inibuilds A350 startup procedure, and that's that document that I'm just about to go and show you, and you can get a copy of it for basically the price of a cup of coffee. And it goes through in here telling you exactly what to do around the aircraft, where to look, what to flick, what to tune in, what to press to get the airplane ready. Obviously it goes on for quite a long way because it's a big complicated airplane. So I'm going to be running through that, so it's as much me validating this procedure as it is showing you it. So yeah, if you go and look at my blog, you can find the links to the procedures. The other way you can find them actually is if you go to ko-fi.com/johnbeckett/shop, and that gives you a much prettier view Is it going to load today? Yeah, here it comes. So that gives you a much prettier view of all the different procedures and guides that I've written. There's not just procedures, there's other things like VFR flight log sheets. There's an IFR flight log sheet in here somewhere. There's also guides to VFR radio telephony and IFR radio telephony. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. Anyway, let's close some of this down because we don't need all these tabs open. We just need our SimBrief flight plan. So we're going to run through that procedure. So first things first then, we're looking overhead with Shift and 4, and we're going to turn on the battery switches. Let me just go and check the volumes, make sure, yeah, the airplane's on 100%. So we've got the batteries up and running. We can put the external power on because it is available. And you can hear the relays cut over there and the external power comes up. Next we're going to go and make sure the strobe is on auto, already is. Nav and logo is on 1, which is already is. So master switch for the APU can come on and start the APU. We can put the crew supply on. And then next we can go and do the emergency exit lights, the no smoking. I'm just going to turn all of the notice lights to auto, or the signs as it calls them in the Airbus. So that's seat belts, no smoking, or personal electronic devices, that's what PED stands for, and mobile phones. We're also going to go and set the ADIAs to nav across the board. I think I've got it set though, so now we've got power to the airplane, we can actually go and have a look. So if I press Shift and Space to come down, the systems have already started to boot up. Yeah, look. So this wouldn't look like this if we didn't have instant alignment. So getting rid of WASM may not have lost everything. So if we go into options and third party, it's still got the SimBrief user ID, which is good. It's got the Navigraph data because it's saying update data. And notice there's a message here. I saw this earlier when I first tested this to make sure it would at least load. That if you switch different nav data sets, so from the sim set to Navigraph for example, it will clear the FMS out. So you need to be careful of that. Obviously once you've done it once it should remember. So what I was going to go look at though is the throttles. So I'm going to go max reverse and just set them again. Then go to idle. So idle reverse, sorry. So it's just off of idle. Then idle. Then the climb detent. Then the flex detent. And then all the way forwards to toga. Okay, so we should be able to then go into flight ops status and pull the SimBrief flight plan, OMDB to VIDP, which is Delhi. Okay, so ground. Let's go and have a look, see if any of this has changed. So we can see there's the external power connected to the aircraft. We've got chocks and GPU are in place, that's all fine. We can go to load sheets and we can import that from SimBrief. And it's given the correct amount of fuel to do the trip. Obviously this plane can go a lot further than we are going. So set the zero fuel weight and set the fuel. Go and just check the operational flight plan is there, and that's obviously got the fuel load sheet as well. Takeoff performance, we can sync with SimBrief to go and fetch the departure airport. We can then sync the weather, and then we can compute, and we can send that directly to the FMS. Could we do that with the load sheet? No, I don't think we can. We have to jump across looking at that when we're configuring the airplane. Okay, so the basics in here are all done. So we can go Shift 5, which will take us over to the FMS. And that's interesting. Oh, I've got the throttles pushed all the way forwards where I was just wondering why the throttles were in view. It's because we were calibrating them, obviously. So that's done. So we can see there's a message there about nav accuracy upgrade and aligning the IRS. So these are a stack of messages. So the latest are at the top, but as you clear them down, you see earlier messages that you haven't cleared previously. So we're going to go to the init page. And on the init page of the FMS, there's a button here, Company Flight Plan Request. This is how you get your SimBrief flight plan. Oh, we'll go and check the charts as well before we go much further. So it's received the company flight plan, and we can insert that into the airplane. So we'll stay there for the moment. And was it shift? I can never remember the keys. Sorry about this. Okay, we're going to use this one. There is no quick way of getting here. We're just going to go over again to the menu and options. I just want to check on third party. So we had Navigraph there, so that should mean we get the terminal chart here. So we should be able to say OMDB, and we should be able to see, for example, this is obviously going to give us all of the Navigraph charts. So where will we find the taxi? Oh, here we go, that's the one I wanted. So I don't think it will show the aircraft position on the map, but I know we're on Concourse B, so we'll be taxiing down this way a bit later on. We can actually cheat to a certain extent, and we can have a look in Navigraph itself, which has got the airport in here. And there we are, look, Concourse B, exactly where we thought we would be. But it's nice that we can do this in the airplane as well. Okay, slightly thrown myself there. Shift and 5. We had just pulled in the information into here. So we can go to departure, or we can do a company wind request as well. So it's requesting it, and we can insert that into the system. We can do departure. So we'll go and look at SimBrief. We're doing the IVA 1G departure, runway 12 right, or 12 right. So runway 12 right, and the IVA 1G. So then we can put that in the temporary flight plan and insert it. We can clear out the message there, and we can go back to the init page. We don't need to look at nav aids. We can look at fuel and load though. We're going to need to fill all these numbers in. So 0 fuel weight. Let's go and look across here. If we go to load sheet, you can see 0 fuel weight is 194.6 tons. So we put the focus in there. We can say 194.6. Enter. Notice the focus goes straight to center of gravity. Also notice we can hear the cabin crew in the background now. So I think that was something that was broken if you tried to run this on the pre-Sim Update 1 version of the aircraft. Anyways, 0 fuel weight center of gravity is 0. I've never seen that before. So we're going to go and type in 0 and press enter. And it doesn't actually allow me to type 0. How interesting. 0.0. Enter. That's a bug. Well, we're doing well, haven't we? Oh, and maybe 0. Maybe the squares mean zeros. Do the zeros look like squares? No, they don't. Interesting. Let's put in 0.01 just so it's got a number in there. Doesn't like it, does it? Let's try that again. There we go. So I hadn't pressed that button. Obviously it didn't register the mouse click. I thought it looked a bit odd. 30.46. So it was out of bounds. Yeah, entry out of range look. You're probably going to find me doing that a lot this evening, because this week I've carried on working this week with this illness. 30.46 or 0.5. Oh, would help if I clicked in here, wouldn't it? 30.5. Yeah, I've carried on working this week, mainly because the paperwork required in not working would have been worse than working. So I've just carried on, and it's taken me so long to do things, to think straight. So we're looking for the fuel load, which is 22.3. Okay. And passenger number, you can get that from over here as well. So 352 passengers. And we are pretty much good to go. So then, having done that, we can return. So we've done the fuel and load. We can do takeoff performance now, and we can just confirm the numbers that we sent across from the takeoff calculator. And we can do a company takeoff request. I'm not sure what that achieves. I'm not going to bother with it. See what happens. Or actually, no, let's go do it. It's easy to do. So you send a takeoff request. So yeah, don't be surprised if I don't make mistakes this evening, because I really am not with it properly yet. I'm surprised I haven't started coughing yet, to be honest. Okay, so we've done the takeoff calculations, and they're all in and confirmed. I'm just scrolling down through my own checklist now. So what we haven't done, if you remember, if we go and look at the flight plan, we didn't actually go and set the arrival into the destination up. So if we go and select Delhi, we can go and do that in advance, and we don't have to do it later. So we're going in on the LKA6C star, runway 29 right. So runway 29 right, and so that'll be ILS for 29 right, and now this is again me being slow. Look, you have to scroll here. LKA6C, wasn't it? Let's just double check. Yep, there it is. Look, LKA6C. So press enter on it. So that's put it all into here. So we've got the star and the runway, and the approach is in there as well. So we can say put that in the temporary flight plan for us and insert it, and it's done. So if we go and double that up and put it into Navigraph, because Navigraph never gives you the approach. So ILS 29 right, final, add to route, and that shows you there the routing. So is there vectors between FS 711 and CF29 right? Should we have a little look down? Yeah, there you go, look. Just looking at those last few waypoints. FS7, that differs, doesn't it? Unless that's even further, even earlier. There's 29 right. There's 29 right. There's a discontinuity right in front of it. So we're just going to go and clear the discontinuity out and confirm that on the flight plan. And you can see now it's got our climb profile should be being calculated, hopefully. There it goes. So the computer's doing all of its working out for the climb profile. We've got a solid line on here. So we need to go and put our climb altitude in. So if we go and have a look on the plan, 39,000 feet for cruise. So let's go and roll around this and set it to 39,000 feet. So I'm going to go back now. So press comma to calibrate the altimeters. I'm going to start looking at the checklist again. So I've done the calibrating the altimeters, flight guidance control panel. We've set the climb altitude. Do we need to set the throttle mode? This is all on managed mode because we've got a fully programmed FMC, which is good. So then we can go overhead, go and put the seatbelt signs to on. I always forget this is reversed for whatever reason. Electric section, external power can come off because obviously the APU is now up and running. And we are going to go to the ground section in here, remove the chocks and the GPU from away from the aeroplane, and we can use the pushback controls. So I'm going to remove the parking brake. Hopefully we won't start rolling, and we'll go pushback. So we are taking off while we're waiting for the truck to come up from 12 right. So if you remember, if we go and have a look at this picture of the airport, 12 right is directly behind us. So we want to push the tail to the left as we push out. Okay, so let's see if where the truck is. He's about to start pushing, is he? So do we need to? Yeah, there we go. So he's going the right way, miraculously. It's always a bit of a lottery with which way the truck will push you. Also, the bug still exists where you need to have something mapped onto the brakes, because that just happened to me. I had to wiggle. I've got a second axis on the joystick on the Thrustmaster set that I always set to be left and right wheel brakes, and by wiggling that it disabled them, otherwise it wouldn't have pushed back. So we're just waiting for the aeroplane to push back. We're not in too much of a hurry, so we'll block all the other traffic. The truck should stop on its own, and then we'll go about starting the engines up, which is the easy bit, to be honest. So the truck should stop sometime soon, or will it? Let's see what happens. If it doesn't, I will stop it. No, it's going to stop. Look, it's straightening up. So it did a 90-degree. Notice it turns the steering wheel for us to turn away from the terminal. That's a really nice touch. So parking brake back on. And then inside the aeroplane, we're going to go overhead and turn the beacon light on, meaning we're about to fire the engines up. Fuel pumps go on. APU bleed goes to on, and then down in the cockpit I'm going to use my controls to do this. You'll see these levers moving. So start, ignition start mode. So you can see the screen's changed up here when I did that. Then starter for engine number 2, and you'll see the N3 coming up in pretty short order, and it's fully automatic, so we just wait. I'm not sure if you can start both engines at once, so I'm going to do one at a time. I need to go and read about that. You'll see now this is all calculated in. Look, it's gone to a solid line. So just firing the engines up, won't be too long. So as soon as the grey box goes out, normally, so this is what I need to check, whether you can do both at once or whether you're supposed to do both at once. The more modern planes you usually can. This is an abundance of caution with me doing one at a time. But then again, I think the more modern planes quite often have electric starters. They don't use compressed air so much, but it may be that this can generate enough compressed air from the APU to start both at once. But that being said, They are enormous engines, aren't they? So you can see engine number 1 is spinning up. Should we go and put the taxi lights on while we're here? You can see the lights come on there. One of the nice options you can have in the tablet is to switch the LED lights out for halogens. Well, I presume they're halogens. You get a great big round chrome light, you know, an old-fashioned one, rather than a nest of LEDs. So engines come up to speed. So as soon as the engine's up and running, ignition can go back to norm, and the APU bleed can come off, and the APU bleed can the APU can come off. Right, where are we on the checklist? So preparing to taxi. So down in the cockpit, we're going to go and turn the auto brakes on. We're going to go and set the flaps to match our takeoff profile. So you can check that in the takeoff performance calculator. So you will see in here 1 plus F. So we're going to go, and I'm using the controls to do this. You see the flap lever move there. And if we look outside, you'll see the leading edges droop slightly and the back of the wing is extending. It takes a few seconds, you can see it's still doing it. Okay, so then we go and arm the ground spoilers by pulling this lever up, and we go and check the screens over here. So we've got everything's green. Anything that's blue is something you need to go and have a look at. So we haven't done a takeoff config test. We won't do that until we get to the runway. So it's saying ground spoilers are armed, parking brake is on, seatbelt signs are on, no smoking sign is on, no mobile sign is on, ADS-B traffic is on. So one thing we haven't done is go and look in the serve page. So let's go do that. So we're going to go and turn the transponder to auto, which turns it on. That also gives you TCAS all of a sudden. So it's on standby at the moment. We'll do TA while we're taxiing, so we're broadcasting our location. And we're going to go out towards the runway. So if you remember looking on the chart, we just need to taxi a little way this way. So probably K3 would be good enough for us. So let's try and have a look around with head tracking all of a sudden. And we're going to ease the throttles forwards, just come off the parking brake. This simulator just looks better and better, doesn't it? Every time it gets updated, it gets better. And the funny thing is how much flack the developers take. So there's K3, I'm going to go for K4, give myself a tiny bit more runway. Actually, we could go right to the end, I suppose, but I don't think we need it. We're light, remember, because it's not a very long flight compared to what this aircraft can do. The Inibuilds rendition of Dubai International is absolutely incredible. They are knocking it out of the park at the moment, aren't they, with aircraft and airfields. So I'm going to take no notice. It's all AI traffic anyway today, so we're going to pull out onto the runway. So here's the runway we were looking for. Am I on the right runway? Let's just double check this. 12 right. I'm just going to go and double check. I'm doubting myself. You know, 12 right's correct. This is the thing, I've got so much fog in my head at the moment with this illness and the cocktail of drugs I'm on. It's making it very difficult to be certain about things. Which is why having checklists is really good. So, we'll line the plane up, parking brake back on. So I'm going to turn the head tracking off for a moment. So what we're going to do is look down here and press the takeoff config button. And we're looking for this to go green and say normal. let's also put this back on the flight plan page. So it didn't go, did it? Let's do it again. Perhaps we have to hold it on for a moment. There it goes. So I think you just have to hold it on for a moment and it goes takeoff config normal. So we now know we are good. What's this airplane in front of us going to do? Is he doing a short takeoff on this runway? Typical. It's just the AI traffic that's built into the simulator. I've not done anything special. Or is he crossing the runway? Maybe he's crossing. Where does he think he's going? So we can see we're gently rolling. That's a function of the Airbus having a slightly positive thrust. Let's go and get out of the way of everybody. So toga on the throttles. We're watching the indicated airspeed.
V1.
And rotate. Gear up. Climb descent on the throttles. Autopilot on. And we're away. So we're now watching the speed, ready to lift the flaps. So we're leaving the flaps in place at the moment. Just keeping an eye on it. We don't need the ground spoilers anymore. And speed is coming back up, so we are going to raise the flaps. Just keeping an eye on it for the first few moments of the flight, and then we can relax a little bit. So something I haven't checked, we're just coming up to 2,000 feet. Let's go and check the transition altitude for the local area, which is 13,000 feet. So we've got ages. Oh, I didn't put the landing lights on. There's always something. Didn't check the checklist, did I? Should have had the landing lights on for takeoff. Also, the nose wheel light can come off. Whoops. Wrong way on the mouse. There's always something I miss. Again, that's busy talking and not looking at the checklist. And that's why you have two people on a real deck. So, on a real flight deck. So one will be talking, the other confirming. You know, one doing talking, the other confirming. Say intentions have got checklists coming, by the way. So you can have the co-pilot reading out the checklist and you confirming verbally as you do things, and they will then co-confirm it and carry on. Okay, so the next thing for us then, if the transition is 13,000 feet, we'll get to 10,000 feet first, which will be landing lights off. Should we have a look outside? So leaving Dubai behind and getting on our way. It's lovely and smooth now, isn't it? So whatever Asobo have been up to, it's working. Very, very nice. That hum of the engines is awesome, isn't it? Okay, so let's go and put the head tracking on so we can look around the cockpit and look outside. So the flight plan today is going to take us out over Dubai, obviously, and then down the Gulf, and then head over Pakistan airspace, so out over the mountains. You can't really see them on this flight plan. Let's have a look at world map. Yeah, so you can see the mountain range there. So we'll fly out over the mountains and then across to Delhi. So it's all fairly flat once we get to eastern side of Pakistan and western side of India. But this side of Pakistan is really mountainous, so that should be quite spectacular below us. But before we get to there, we're going to be flying out along the Gulf here. Now, I always forget the name of this stretch of water, so I'm going to cheat. The Gulf of Oman. So Persian Gulf before you get to the bend or the elbow, and then the Gulf of Oman after that. I remember when I was young, all of the fighter plane video games centered around the Persian Gulf because there were various wars between these oil states when I was young, and America got involved in them as well. So yeah, you had all sorts of fictional missions set around the Persian Gulf. Yeah, takes me back. And again in the Mediterranean as well, with Libya, sort of 30 years ago, there was quite a lot of trouble with Libya. Okay, so we obviously haven't got the flight plan in Little Nav Map, so let's go find it. So flight plan, file, open it from SimBrief, download it, create the flight plan, don't save what I've got. There we go. So now it reflects what we're actually doing. So we can also go and clear out its memory of what we last did. So we can use that for reference along the way. Obviously, we'll probably stay with Navigraph though. So let's go and see what altitude we're up to. We're just gone through 10,000 feet. So the landing lights can come off. We're climbing at 1,000 feet a minute. And you can see those mountains, look. Even out on this headland on this side. There'll be a lot more to look at later, but it's pretty spectacular, isn't it, out here? It's funny, only being away from the sim for sort of 10 days or whatever it's been, it makes it all the more impressive coming back now and seeing it. I'm surprised my voice is holding out, to be honest. Just reading the live stream comments there. So Martin is saying, I would have been a horrible pilot because I don't say that much. It's different when it's your job though, isn't it? And you're confirming. It's a conversation. It's not, they're not talking into the ether as we do on YouTube. On the flight deck, you're working as a team and you're confirming what each other has done. So it's just part of the routine of doing the job. It's funny, I work as a software developer, and there was a new idea a few years back. It didn't really take off, called extreme programming. I don't know why it got called that, but it also got called pair programming, where one sits and does the thinking while the other does the programming. So it's not, it's not a strict separation of concerns, but it's an interesting thing. It's a little bit like pilot and co-pilot, where you would take turns to actually sit and do the programming, where one person does the strategic thinking, the other person does the tactical part, which is just, writing the code. I suspect it's the same for flight crew, apart from obviously redundancy in a cockpit. The reason they've got two in there is redundancy, so either of them can complete the job. And that's why they have different meals and things like that. Yeah, I don't know how many people actually know that, but flight crew are not allowed to eat the same meal as each other. So let's see. I don't think there's any constraints. I should have switched that on before, really. Oh, there's one here, look, above 10,000 feet once we get to Ivuro, but we're already above 10,000 feet, so that's fine. We're through 14,000. You can see the QNH is flashing. Wants us to go to standard. So we push the QNH knobs both sides. So 13,000 was the transition altitude. I've still got the seatbelt signs on. I'm going to be kind to the passengers. It's a nice gentle climb out, so Seatbelt signs can come back to off, and they can all go and run for the lavatory. It always amuses me. I've mentioned this before. So many people seem to do that. It's like they can't wait 10 minutes and they have to run for the loo as soon as they can. Maybe they had lots to drink in the departure lounge or something. Especially these days where you have to arrive 2 hours before a flight. So you end up drinking a couple of coffees before you even get on the aeroplane. I love this new the detail that the A350 gives you on the climb profile. So you can see it's really, really handy for descent actually, especially on complicated stars where you might have all sorts of constraints and step descents and things. Let's increase the range again. We should see. I still haven't read the book yet to know what the square bracket terminology is on the navigation display. That's still new to me. So if we increase the range out, you see our top of climb is a long way out. It's 80, 90 miles out, look. But there's this square bracket as well. So something else we can do is go into serve and turn the TCAS to TARA now. So it will detect and react to other aircraft. So yeah, I've been reading. I've seen terrain mode, that works. If you go and switch it on, there we go. I think, does the weather radar work as well now? There's probably nothing to see out there though, is there? Yeah, it's clear as far as the eye can see. So we'll leave terrain mode on there. It's quite useful. It it just does dot patterns of hills. I used it coming into Scotland on my first test flight of the aeroplane. It was very impressive the way it renders it. I love this kind of detail that they've gone into with the dot patterns, which is obviously replicating what the real aeroplane does, but just doing that as a routine is actually interesting. This is me talking as a software developer. So Dave saying, just joining from Wrexham, North Wales. Love these live streams. Oh, you're welcome. It's nice for me to be back. I've really missed being on the simulator. The only reason I haven't been doing anything for the last week or so, I couldn't talk without coughing. And right now I've got a Red Bush tea in front of me with a load of honey in it, which is helping a little bit. So when I'm not talking, I'm sipping that. But yeah, I've been on the biggest cocktail of drugs this week to try and get me back to normal. I've never had a lung infection before, and it's not been pleasant. I don't smoke, I don't drink very often, so I think the only thing I can put it down to is we had a load of friends round. So I probably, given this, the world of people who work all the time and then work in the evenings on simulators and stuff, don't see many people a lot of the time, so we had a whole house full of people, and I'm guessing I caught something, from the people who do see people. Oh, obviously my kids as well. One of them has started working with small children, so that may be where it's come from. Who knows? But yeah, it's good to be back and to be flying again. So, quite apart from flying the big jets, I'll be flying them this weekend quite a bit. I'm going to go and get the various sceneries from Orbex for they've upgraded several of their mountaintop sceneries in the US for the fire lookout station sceneries. So I'm going to go and update those and go and do another tour of them in 2024 to see what they look like. I think that should be really good fun. Might do it in a helicopter. So go and get either the Chinook or the I'll have a look. I haven't really touched the helicopters much in 2024 yet. we're doing on the climb profile. It's all looking good, isn't it? It's going to be a fairly long flight, so you can see we're just leaving Dubai, so I won't be present for the whole of the flight because that would be madness. But certainly if I step away in a bit, I'll arrive before we get to Delhi, and I'll obviously leave it on a nice outside view so everybody can see where we are. No messages. Let's go and put the flight plan page on so we can see the information, and on the other side on the FMS we can put something else on if we want to. So I'm just wondering what the typical things they would show would be. Maybe the serve, yeah, maybe the serve page. Obviously you can independently configure the co-pilot and pilot screens as well. That's interesting that the pilot and co-pilot also get the terrain mode independently of each other. I'll turn it off for the co-pilot. So let's go and have a look at the charts then. En route charts. So if I zoom out, interesting, why is that not doing anything? Is that my fault? Maybe that hasn't been implemented yet. Or maybe it's something that needs setting up. Because when I looked at terminal chart, they were there. I would have thought that would have shown the Navigraph chart. Something to tinker with en route, isn't it? So menu, options, third party. We've already got the data. We've got a sim brief. What does streamer mode do, I wonder? I'm not going to fiddle with too many things because I'll end up breaking it. So why are we not getting an en route chart? VFR day. Feels like it should be streaming tiles in or something. Anyway, let's leave the OFP on the page. It's a shame you can't zoom the text in, or maybe you can and I'm just not noticing how you do it. You can... no, you have to drag this. That's a shame as well then. That's why they've got the shortcuts, obviously. Excuse me. Okay, so we'll be looking at just looking at the time now. Have we got a clock in the cockpit? Because I obviously wound the time back in the simulator. I'm just looking to see what the time is. It's 7:23. Okay, so that corresponds with the next waypoint. So we're looking at 9:41 for arrival at the destination. 9:40. Obviously that's going to vary around with wind along the way. So a couple of hours time basically. So we'll be cruising most of the way. weather. Interesting. So someone's saying we can speed the flight up in the EFB. So if we go into flight ops, time compression. Okay, yeah. So we could put on auto and it would just speed us up in mid cruise, I guess. No, that's fine. I'm going to leave it on for this flight. I just want to see how it works without doing too much to the aeroplane. So let's increase the range out on the displays now. We're up to cruise. So we can see our route. I'm going to get turn terrain mode off. We don't need that anymore. Maybe we don't need 600 miles, hey? Maybe 300's enough. Just to see the route out. So let's go and have a little look on the charts. So we're coming out across here. So when we turn left, we'll be going out towards Pakistan. So that's Egtal is the turning point. Yeah, there we go, look. So Egtal is still over the Gulf. And then we head out over. We just cover the corner, actually, of now. Which airspace is that? Or which country border, I should say? Iran. So if we put airspaces on, that will tell a different story entirely. So if we were using ATC, we would be jumping in between airspaces probably. So we're over, what's this one? Muscat. And then we would be crossing Tehran and then over into Karachi control. Notice it threads the airway threads past all of these different restricted areas. So this one, the Paf Masroor local flying area. What's this one over here then? Krypton. Ozone and Gecko and Paf Shabazz low level flying A. But notice it's only from 0 to 2,000 feet. The Ozone and Gecko is restricted and it's unlimited altitude. Interesting. But yeah, so if we had ATC going on, we would be being passed in between the different sectors. Obviously then as you cross over the border here, you're going into Delhi control. And I'm guessing they would take you all the way in and then hand you over to arrivals. I'm not going to do radio comms tonight because my voice, I'll end up coughing and spluttering even though I'm talking now and getting away with it. I'm not going to push my luck. So someone's saying if we change the time, it looks prettier. Let's have a look. So if we wind time forwards, gently. Is it different than it was before? Pretty good. I'm going to wind the time back a bit anyway. Now you notice that through the aeroplane around. I wonder if that's the height of the sun is influencing air temperature in some way. Does look good, doesn't it? So does 2020 has contrails, doesn't it? Or it used to. So we got Dest EFOB. So what we can do is go into performance and go into approach. We can go put the numbers in. It's not, it'll be hours until we get there, but let's go and open up the information on Delhi. Open the airport, go to the weather. So 250, 2 knots. Outside air temperature is 15 degrees centigrade. I noticed Emmanuel, or what's he called these days? Airbus driver, is it? I always get his name wrong. He mentioned this, that some of these fields have automatic movement of the cursor to the next field, which makes it really nice. So 1009 for the QNH. I think he's been talking to the developers to get them to bring it a bit closer to the real thing. We're not going to activate the approach. You wouldn't do that until you're on finals, because it will play havoc with the aeroplane. And we're just coming up to cruise. So back to the flight plan page. It's very good, isn't it? Yeah, the lighting model has been updated, obviously, with the new sim. Well, there's a lot that's been done, actually. So what does Dest EFOB mean? This is me calling on the community, because I don't know what that means. I thought that would mean the destination. Estimated fuel on block. Okay. So I need to go into... we do that earlier. So if we go cruise, Dest, approach, where do we enter it? Or is that a warning that it's going to be low? Maybe it's a warning that we're going to have a low fuel level. Interesting. Well, we'll see what happens. We can always get it out of it anyway. There's a key combination in the simulator where you can put fuel into the aeroplane. I know it's not being realistic, but we'll see how we go. We're running at 91% of the engines at the moment. Remember, we're still climbing, so we will level out. We've got almost 100 knot tailwind, which is going to help us enormously. So if we look on the flight plan, does that give us... Min fuel at destination is saying 6 tons. But is that the predicted? Fuel on block was 16. So let's go and take this down to 1. And it's made it go away. 6 tons is a lot to have left over. Check min dest efob. Where is it? I think that is it. Well, 5 tons is, I'm just reading the comments there from Cologne, 5 tons is a lot. I think the general rule of quite a lot of aeroplanes is, well, it obviously depends on the flight and a lot of other things, but I heard a story from a friend of mine who used to work at can't remember if he was at Heathrow or Gatwick, but a Concorde landed with less than a ton left, I think, and the pilot was fired. I think it was a Concorde. Or it may even have been, I think they'd had a case as well, I'm not sure if it was Concorde or something else, that ran out of fuel on the taxi, and I think the pilot was in a lot of trouble for that as well, because that's, you know, they have safety margins and they weren't within the margins. I imagine if you can't get to your destination on the fuel you've got because the wind's changed or whatever, you're diverting, aren't you? You wouldn't just plough on and cut it that fine. Or maybe you would and get fired. Because if you, like this aeroplane for example, we've got 350 passengers. That's 350 lives you're putting at risk through your own decisions. Therefore, you're not going to ever take a chance with anything. Yeah, so the thrust level's coming down, look. Now we're at 39,000 feet, it's dropped to 85%. Mach 0.85, that's shifting, isn't it? So you usually get about Mach 0.83 in a 737, but of course they have trouble getting up this high. Be interesting to find out what the ceiling is of this aeroplane, because I know the 7.4 can go above 40,000, can't it? Ah, so Kaiser Sausage, that's a great name. So it is saying, just popped in as I saw you were live streaming, not really into airliners yet, but it's good to see you're feeling better. Thank you very much. It's been a horrible couple of weeks, it really has. We went down to visit my parents and I was so poorly while we were there, it was just nuts. And that was when I came home, and my other half on the way home made me call the doctor. It's so unusual. I think I've been to the doctor like 3 times in about 20 years. It's not unusual, you know, that I wouldn't go to the doctor, it's just I don't get sick. It just doesn't happen. I do need to get back into running. I used to, until about a year ago, I used to run regularly, and I just haven't got out of the habit. I need to do it, because it made me feel a lot better, just in myself as well. And I'm not getting any younger. So the more I can do to improve my fitness and general health would be good. Ah, Leah's come through with the numbers. So the A350 can get to 41,500 feet. That's pretty high, isn't it? I think maybe the 7.4 can go higher than that. I know business jets can. So I spotted, while I've not been running the sim, Am I right in thinking that the Learjet has been updated for 2024 now? Is it Simworks Studios that make the Learjet? I can never remember which companies make which anymore. There's too many aeroplanes. But there's another Learjet in development as well, isn't there? Is it just Flighter working on one? Oh, and by the way, I've got a mug in my hand that I'm drinking this herbal tea out of. My mum and dad bought it me for my birthday. It says on the mug, "I'm kind of a big deal on YouTube." Sorry, if I laugh I start coughing. So unfortunately now my other half thinks it's hilarious that I've got this mug saying I'm kind of a big deal on YouTube. So she's taken the Harrison Ford or Han Solo line with it. Whenever I walk in the room with this mug, she just calls me big deal. In the same way that he called, was it Finn in Star Wars, he called big deal. So yeah, I just noticed, just reading Cologne's comment there about drinking tea. Just commented to my other half, I realised this evening I have not drunk coffee for 2 weeks. So I don't know why, whenever I'm poorly I don't drink coffee. I go towards tea instead. And I just noticed this evening I haven't drunk coffee for a couple of weeks. Which is, they're supposed to be like a coming off it kind of thing, isn't there, with caffeine? But I don't think I was really affected. Oh, while we're in the air and flying, I'm going to go and hopefully find something that might be of interest to the aviation crowd watching this. It's an Apple Plus show called For All Mankind. I'm not going to get into too much about what it's about, and obviously I can't stream it because I'll get a copyright hit. But you can get Apple TV Plus on Amazon Prime as well, as a kind of a secondary subscription. So it's worth binging it to go and get, or getting it for a month if you want to binge and go and get For All Mankind. It's very, very good. So for anyone that's not seen it, the first episode of the first season starts out with the lunar landings in 1969, except the Russians got there first. It's an alternate timeline is the premise for the whole show, and it's kind of a what if, and it kind of unravels history. And I'm not going to ruin any of the plot points of things that happen that didn't happen, that could have happened, but it's really, really interesting. So the space race didn't end. It became a full-on race and carried on. And apparently I was reading about it a couple of days ago. The show is basically fully funded. They're going to make 7 seasons of it, basically covering 70 years of history of this alternate timeline. It's been very, very good. We're about halfway through the first season, or 2/3 of the way now. It's really, really good. That's the one thing, being sick, I've watched a lot of TV. So we binge watched both seasons of Silo with Rebecca Ferguson. That was very good. And now we're obviously halfway through the first season of For All Mankind. Whereabouts are we in the world? Can we see Pakistan? There we go. Pakistan, and the corner of Iran is just coming up. It's on that spit of land there, isn't it? The corner. Yeah. So where that curved bay is, Hadizir and Demizir. So we come in over Jiwani is that outcropping in the southwest corner of Pakistan. So we're just avoiding Iranian airspace. That's Iran over there. So yeah, both of those series are very good then if you want something to binge watch. For All Mankind has got, I think it's 4 seasons already out, available. It's the special effects in it are stunning. And the kind of the alternate take on what could have happened if history had played out slightly differently was really great. So they delve into that there was a second Mercury set of astronauts. This was an absolutely true story. There was a set of female astronauts that were in training, and they all got canned. You know, that part of the program got canned. But in this show, they don't. Or they did. Well, it's complicated, but I don't want to ruin it for anybody. They do get canned, but they don't. Let's put it that way. But it's interesting that Apollo 11 doesn't go to plan, quite apart from them being second. I do wonder if they'll ever do a remake of The Right Stuff. I don't know if it could be remade. It probably would get turned into several movies these days, wouldn't it? And I think Tom Wolfe, over the years, people have realised that the Right Stuff had quite a lot of untruth and hyperbole in it. Yeah, Rebecca Ferguson. I'm just reading Martin's comment there. She's in Silo. She's very good. Lives in London. Has done for years, apparently. So the EFOB fuel message isn't coming up anymore, but then we're at a lower thrust rate now, so we're down to 84, look. So, and we've still got that 90 knot tailwind, which will serve us well, hopefully. So, shall we try out this acceleration feature and see what happens? If it breaks it, I'm blaming you lot. Time compression is off at the moment. We're going to say 2 times. I've got, let's just check this. Task Manager, how much headroom have I got on this machine? It needs to make it wider, don't I, to see the things. So running the GPUs at half power. The GPU memory is using half of its capacity, so we're running pretty low on what I could do. So half the RAM, half the CPU, half the GPU. So should we do it? Be interesting. I'll leave Task Manager running. I've never tried this feature, so we're going to say let it go up to 4 times. Actually no, we'll be careful. 2 times auto. So that started flickering, and it's saying simulation rate 2 times. So what's it done in terms of hitting the CPU? Nothing. So then if we go 4 times, simulation rate is now 4 times. So the Wi-Fi spiked when we did that, but the GPU rate's actually gone down. Interesting. So we just need, whoa, now will it handle a turn at 4 times? Much better than it does when you try and do the same trick on, now notice it's bobbing. If we look outside, can we see that? You see the nose bobbing slightly? But it's not getting out of control. It's not. All I was worried about is if you get an oscillation start to happen when you accelerate physics models, they can get wildly out of control. So STD means standard barometric pressure for the Joker there in the comments. I'm sure he knows. So we're just coming up to a waypoint called Pasta. Interesting. So we are shooting across the map, aren't we? So I am going to go and recharge my cup of Red Bush tea, and then I'll be back in true Arnie fashion. So it says AP disconnects that occur during the time compression will pause the simulator. So if you get the airplane, if the airplane does start to oscillate then, and it veers wildly enough to break the autopilot, it will pause the sim rather than let it, just careen into the ground. That's interesting. Look, performance mode, unload hidden model parts, so the cabin for example, to aid in performance. But it's already, well, I understand the computer I'm running this on is a beast. It was bought for 2024 and that's all it's got installed on it, which is, as you can see, that's why the graphs are so low. Flying a big jet like this at altitude is not stressing it. So it's running at 4 times speed at the moment. I'm just going to wait till we get to this next corner to see how it navigates it before I go and make a cup of tea. So, just reading Huna Gal's comment there. Will Flight Simulator be released on the PlayStation? No. It's a Microsoft first-party title. Well, although I don't know, I would suspect not. I can't obviously say for definite. But the cheapest way to run Flight Simulator is Xbox. It's one of those horrible things where to run it on a PC, the amount of investment in a PC to equal an Xbox is enormous. So you're kind of 500. I'm going to say this in sterling because obviously I live in the UK, but a £500 Xbox is about the equivalent performance of a £1,500 PC. And I don't mind sharing the numbers with you. This PC I'm running this on, which obviously I use for streaming and recording and all the rest of it, cost £4,000. But that's because I bought it to future-proof me for a couple of years, and I bought it on finance, so actually the last payment is going in this month. So all of my efforts on YouTube and all the money I've made from it has gone into paying for this computer. So there we go, look. It's remarkably stable in accelerated time, isn't it? That's remarkable. So it made quite a steep turn there at 4 times sim rate, and it doesn't have a problem with it. Which means I can go and make a cup of tea, and then we'll be at top of descent before next Tuesday. So Yeah, I can't comment about PC specs and what the performance is like because I intentionally bought the fastest thing I possibly could. And I saved for 6 months ahead of it, and I've paid for it over 6 months after it. So there was a lot of investment went into it to do it. But I have no other hobbies. My other half has a car, I don't have a car. I don't smoke, I don't drink very often. So this is my only outgoing hobby, whatever you want to call it. Outside of, food. Okay, I'm going to go make a cup of tea and I'll be back in a few minutes. Hopefully, if this pauses, that's a really nice safeguard. So it's essentially, if the airplane does get into an oscillation and kills the autopilot, it will pause the sim. That is, oh, look at that. So I guess the other cause then is, a changing weather could trip it. It's a really nice safeguard to have built in though. Should we set ourselves up in the cockpit and back and further away so we can give you a bit of a view as we're zooming along? There we go. Right, so I'm going to go make a coffee, back in a few minutes. Not a coffee, sorry, a tea. Okay, I'm back again. So, looking at the live stream comments there. We've got a comment here. Jonathan, love the vids. Newbie to Flight Simulator. Why does my A350 and any aircraft I fly, when I try to get autopilot engaged to follow the route, like go around in circles and not follow the line? That very simple statement could take an hour to explain why it might not be happening. So yeah, I think Martin is on the right track. The route as far as the airplane is concerned is in the flight plan page of the FMS, Flight Management System. To get it in there, I shortcutted it. I'm going to do some videos about this over time. But in the A350, you go into the init page, and I used the company flight plan request to download the flight plan from SimBrief. So I generated the flight plan at SimBrief. I could go and do a new one. So the way you do that, it won't affect the plane that's flying. You put in your airline and your flight number, and say this one we're just doing is OMDB to, is it VICC? No, VIDP, sorry. To VIDP. And then you choose your aeroplane type, so we want the A350 1000. And there's the projected route based on the current wind and everything, so then we can say generate. And that makes you a flight plan. So SimBrief keep that up in the cloud for you on the internet. And then with your login details for SimBrief, you can put your user ID for SimBrief into here. If you go into the menu page and options and third party, there's your SimBrief user ID. So if you put that in there, when you come back in here and you go into the flight status, you can import from SimBrief. There's several pages around the system. So like, the load sheet, it's going to go and get the number of passengers and how much cargo, bags they've got with them and blah blah blah, and the fuel load from the flight plan, because part of the SimBrief flight plan is the fuel plan as well. So you've got the load sheet here, look, of how much, based on the aeroplane, how much fuel it thinks you will use. But the other thing it does, obviously, is this bit here, which is the route, which is this black line on the map. So the quick way of getting that into the aeroplane is, once you've got it set up with your SimBrief ID, you can press the company flight plan request button on the init page. And then you can insert that in, and once you've inserted it, if you go and look on the flight plan page, you'll see all the legs in here. Once you have got the legs and you've set up the departure and the arrival, you've got what's called a completed flight plan. And once you've got that, the line will go solid on the navigation display. It won't be dotted anymore. And once you've got a solid line, the heading bug, when you push the knob away, we nearly lost the autopilot there. Oh no, we're just turning a corner. When you push the heading bug towards the cockpit or towards the aeroplane, you're telling it, I want the aeroplane to make the decisions. But it can only do that if you've got a completed flight plan with no gaps in it. Yeah? Otherwise, you're on selected heading mode, which is probably what you're seeing with your flying around in circles. You've not mandated what the aeroplane should do, potentially. Same goes for altitude. You have to fill in the performance numbers into the system. So you go into perf, and you've got your takeoff data, and you've got the climb data, and so on and so forth. So it's all about programming the systems up, because the Airbus flies itself, but it can only do that if it's got all the information. And the map you put into the world map screen in the simulator will not cut it with any of the more accurate aeroplanes. Yeah, so putting the route into the world map screen in Flight Simulator will not work with any of the accurate aeroplanes, because they are essentially not compatible with the world map screen. So what you need to do, the cheap, quick way to do it, is to make your flight plan in SimBrief. SimBrief's free. Make your flight plan in SimBrief, and then use the company flight plan request to pull it into the simulator. And then once you've done that, on the init screen still, you can go down these options, so you can set your departure. So when you're looking at that, just to give you a clue, your departure is here, look. OMDB is the airport, 12 right is the runway, IVA 1G is the standard instrument departure, or SID. So what I mean by that is, if you can see departures. Well, actually we can't do it while we're in the air, but if we were going to go and look on flight plan, we could change this for the destination. So you'll see there's our destination there. If we select it, we could actually go and choose it if we chose to. So we could choose the runway, the approach, the via and the star. Normally you'd only be going for runway, approach and star. You don't have to fill all of them in. And this is broadly the same across all aeroplanes. Obviously the way you do it is different in every aeroplane. Boeings are very prescribed in the way they do it, Airbuses are different, and the A350 is very different than the A320, for example. But they are broadly the same thing that you're doing. You're getting the basics of the flight plan in, so getting, you know, the legs. And you can program them by hand, by the way. So we could go and select one of these, and we could insert another waypoint after it that's not on the flight plan, for example. Or we could delete one of these waypoints and change them. Obviously I'm not going to, but you can see that we could. So you can fully program a flight plan by hand. The advantage of SimBrief, on a long flight plan like this one, it's going to put all of these legs in for us. So we're getting near to top of descent, so I'm going to go and turn the speed back down. Otherwise we'll have a situation to deal with. Where was it? Menu, options, simulation. There we go. So turn time compression back off. So we should be able to see somewhere around here. Have we already? Yeah, we're still on our plan. So this was based on, I've only got the 747 performance profile in Little Nav Map, so it's showing us top of descent if we were a 747 in about 80 miles time. But I don't believe that's quite right for this aeroplane. We can see it here, look. It'll be when it comes down through. So flight level 390, it looks like it's going to start descending at LKA, which is this corner. So what we'll need to do is go and set our target altitude before we get to top of descent to tell it how low we want to get to. And to figure that one out, we need to go and look at Navigraph. You don't need Navigraph to do any of this. It just makes it easier. So yeah, that's the ILS. Oh, we've not got a star involved. Let me go and have a look at the flight plan again. LKA6C. Oh, it just hasn't pinned it for us, has it? So if we go into here and... Interesting. So let's look at the charts for Delhi and look at the stars. Can we see a LKA? Maybe it hasn't got a chart. That's interesting. So this is where Little Nav Map can come into its own, because it can show us, look, that is the star there. But has it really not got a chart for it? Because what we're essentially saying is that LKA is the beginning of the star, but it doesn't appear to have a chart. Am I just being blind? Again, this is what I said, that I warned you this could happen, where my brain really isn't functioning 100% at the moment. But the nice thing is we can play with Little Nav Map, look. And let's turn the sectors off, we don't need to see them, which will make it a bit smoother. So we need to be above 15,000 feet at Akban. Now you can see that in the FMS as well. So coming down from LKA, this is shorthanding it. Yeah, it's not got all the waypoints on the route in it. That's interesting. It is so different. But you can see the stars are what are called constraints. So if we go and turn constraint view on over here and zoom out a bit further, it's, yeah, at higher zoom levels it won't show you them. But what we do need to know about is our first constraint on the way in is we need to be above 15,000 and above 11,000, so we can be as high as we like, above 8,000, above 3,000. So you could say, if you wanted to play this by the numbers, we need to get to 15,000 feet. But how far do we need to do that? So if we measure backwards, we've got 120 nautical miles. We're at nearly 40,000 feet, and we need to get to 15,000 feet. Okay, so 25,000 feet we need to drop. How long do we need to drop through 25,000 feet? The general rule of thumb is 3 to 1, so 1 mile for every, 1,000 feet for every 3 miles in a general glide. So if you want to drop, what did we say, 25,000 feet, 325, 75 miles. So we need to, if we go measure from here, round about there, let's just draw on here with a line. It won't mean anything in terms of the route, but that's about the point we need to start descending. It's interesting that this hasn't got it marked. Have we still got a discontinuity or something? You'd think it would have it marked, wouldn't you? So to figure out, and again, there are various tricks in the cockpit where you could put an interstitial waypoint on your route. Now look, we're going, yeah, this is wrong. Either the aeroplane's wrong. Let me double check what I've programmed. So vid P29R, vid P29R, LKA6C. That is what I did, wasn't it? No, have I put the wrong? No, I've put MUP16. Oh no, I reprogrammed the route, didn't I? This is not the route that we are flying, because I was messing around with SimBrief to show you it. So what we can do is go to the dashboard, and there's the one we're actually flying. That explains a lot. We're doing LKA6C, which, no, that's still not that. Have I chosen the wrong MUP? What on earth is going on? Unless this is just wrong. Let's load it. Oh my, how have I managed to do that then? So we need to, let's go and change the Navigraph route then. That's the easy way to do this. We'll make this match what's in the aeroplane. So we're doing the MUP1I6C. So remove that arrival. That one. this is what we're doing. Okay. So somewhere along the way we got mixed up in between me talking, and like I said mistakes would happen this evening. So we're doing this roundabout route to come around the other side of Delhi. Which explains why we're not descending yet. So let's do the same thing on little nav map to make it make sense. So what we can do is right click on this, show the arrival procedures for 29. 29 right, wasn't it? Now there's two of these. Insert. And then we want 29 right. Yeah, I'm not sure which transition it would have done, but there's the basics of it. So if we look in here, we're going to come through FN614, is that correct? Yep, there it is, look. Then there's the manual step to get to CF29 right, which is going to be one of these ones down here. That's in line with the runway. It's quite difficult to see them sometimes. Little nav app isn't the greatest at drawing them. But to be honest, once you leave that waypoint, you're manual. So our top of descent should be then over here somewhere. So this still doesn't completely match, which is really odd. That's what we've been doing. It's a bit of a brain workout I didn't want, isn't it? So we should see top of descent appear along this line ahead of us. So let's go and... Yep, there. Oh, there's a marker there, but that's not top of descent. There it is, look. It's a little bit further around the corner. So our kind of back of a... back of a piece of paper adding up wasn't quite accurate. So let's have a look at these. So we're doing MUPI6C, which would explain why we couldn't find it in here probably. So now we can see it. There we go. So do we have any restrictions? Above 130 at SAM. So we're at 40,000 feet nearly. We need to drop 27,000 feet. So 27 times 3, you can do the working out in your head, will give you the number of miles. So 81 miles. But then we don't have to in the Airbus because it tells us when to start descending. Obviously if we do it earlier, we get more time to correct ourselves on the way. Yeah, it's a shame that they haven't got the en route map working, isn't it? No doubt they'll fix it soon. What are we doing? OFP. I'll just leave it on the OFP page. So you can see now top of descent is coming just after Muppet. We'll follow the route it wants to, because we can always use spoilers to come down more steeply if we need to. Generally descents are predicated by glide speed without spoilers. Obviously the wind can play havoc with that, but the aeroplane will have taken that into account. let's go and double check a few things on the way. We've already done the weather at the destination. So just looking on the chart here, has it got the transitions set by ATC? So it's usually on the ILS charts. 5,000 feet. And what is the airfield elevation? That's the other thing that's really important to us. 778 feet. So that tells us, well, it's usually this sort of approach, it's predicated by this. So you want to be at 2,600 feet. That's above sea level, remember. So 6 miles out, 2,600 feet. That's at FF29R, which is there, look. So that's probably about 12 or 18 miles out there, look. So they're coming, they want you to come in level into that point for the final descent at 2,600. So if you remember, looking on this map, when we come through the end of the star, we've then got a manual. So this would be vectored by ATC. As soon as you're through here, you would not turn right in the real world. You would carry on until you received instruction to turn right. And then they would bring you in. That's why it looks like quite a tight turn, because in the real world you carry on. And they may let you fly way out this way towards the VOR. And they may even use the VOR as a reference. And then you turn back in. And that's how, obviously then that's how you get the queue of aeroplanes. We're getting closer. So we're about 50 miles from turning right and starting our descent. Should we speed it up, seeing as we know how to do that now? And it seems to be quite usable. So time compression on auto, so it's simulating at 4 times. So we'll go zooming in towards Moopid at top speed. That's my new favourite toy now. And then we're going to go and set our altitude for the first constraint, basically. So when we lower the navigation display down, is it going to show them this yet? No, not yet. So there we can do an automatic step climb. That's rather clever. So we're going to turn time compression off. We're 20 miles out now from the top of descent. And we want to see what those constraints were. So you can see it both in Little Nav Map. Little Nav Map shows it really nicely. Look, we've got above 13,000 feet, which is what we could also see on the Jeppesen chart from Naviggraph. So if we go back to the approach chart, you've got above 13,000 feet at the SAM or Sampler VOR. We'll be coming in after we make our turn towards it. Should we put the map back on auto IFR? So what we can do then is go and change this to 13,000, and we just won't touch anything else yet. We're just dialing it in. So then when we get to just before top of descent, we will push this knob in towards the cockpit, which will instruct the aeroplane, get to 13,000 feet following your own plan. Yeah, so while we're in the turn at this waypoint, we'll go and push this towards the aircraft, which will be telling it, right, take us to 13,000 feet. You'll also notice a dot will appear on the altitude ribbon, telling you where you are on in relation to the planned profile for descent. So if I do it now, I've told it get to 13,000. The dots appeared. Look, we're descending. We're going below the profile, but it will only go to 1,000 feet a minute until it meets the profile. So we're getting ahead of the game. We're lower than we are planned to be, but only by 1,000 feet. And we're only descending at 1,000 feet a minute. When we meet the green dot again, the descent rate will increase probably to about 1,800 feet a minute, which is, as I said, is kind of the glide descent rate of the big jets. So you'll see us catch back up with the green dot in a minute. So there's your top of descent marker we've just come through, and you'll see the green dot catch back up with us because we are only descending at 1,000 feet a minute because we went early. So you can also see the mode at the top of the primary flight display says descent. And look, the green dot is catching us back up. So when it hits the middle, the plane will naturally fall to its best descent rate instead of just 1,000 feet a minute. And there it goes, look, it's doing it. Notice because it went a bit wide on the turn as well, it's turning further than it needs to. It wants to get back on the track. And at the moment, look, it's caught back up with the green dot, which is the descent profile. But if you can't stay with the descent rate, you will see a retard message. I think you see that on the Airbuses. You see a retard message up here for the throttle, basically meaning, can you help me out and give me some spoilers? So now we're further below where we should have been. So it's not the most perfect tracking of the profile ever, but it's good enough. But if you do start to get way above the green dot, in other words, the aeroplane can't descend as quickly as it needs to, and that may be because of a weather change, for example, you can always use the spoilers to allow the aeroplane to come down more steeply without accelerating. It'll be interesting to see how much fuel we have left at the end. Whew. Should I go and put the terrain mode back on? It looks pretty flat out here, so I can't imagine it's going to pick up any hills to speak of. So if you go and look on terrain mode on little nav map, look, there's nothing. It's flat as a pancake out here. So we're going to skirt around the outside of New Delhi, or Delhi, and then come back into the airport. That's going to be really cool. So we'll get to do basically a tour of the city on the way in. Get to have a nice look at it. So we're coming down 28,000 feet and descending. We've gone above the profile. Look, the throttles are idle. It's commanded idle, but it's struggling. Basically, I imagine because we've got this massive tailwind still, and we're falling further and further away. So I'm going to put the spoilers out gently. So I've extended the speed brakes. You can see that is indicated here and over here, and that will help the aeroplane come back down towards the green dot and catch up with it. You've also got obviously a very nice visual representation now on the A350. So now we're in descent, we ought to tell the passengers to go and put their seatbelts on, didn't we? That's interesting. That taxi light has got a... where the sun is hitting it, it's really lighting up the message on it. Oh, you are getting little bits of the ground show up, look. We probably don't need it though, it's flat around here. So we were looking to get to, yeah, above 13,000 feet by the time we get to Sam. But it doesn't mean we have to be at 13,000 feet. This is a common thing you see people do. Well, they'll try and hit those targets. The profile will be aiming to get to 3,000 feet by the time we're on the ILS or thereabouts. It will be following these numbers, yeah, these targets here. So just because it has to be above doesn't mean it has to be at. So it will be taking the longer range view of any constraints. So if you look in here, there are no constraints with lines above and below, which would mean at the altitude. So we're really looking at 7,000 feet further down range, so let's go do that. But it does want a deceleration to 250 knots. So I've taken the spoilers back away, look, it had opened the engines up. In other words, it was holding the profile easily and had opened the engines up to provide thrust. Now I've removed the spoilers, look, it's gone back to idle. So we need 250 knots at Sam. So you'll see the blue triangle for the target marker go. There's a deceleration point. It's probably that, but usually I thought you saw a squiggly line normally, but anyway. You can see though it's going to lessen the descent rate to get the speed off ahead of Sam. It's very clever. So it's now going to lift the nose. You can watch the attitude indicator there. Get ready. Because there it goes, look. Nose is coming up to bleed the speed off. So we'll help it. We'll throw the spoilers all the way out. So if we look outside on the wings, we've just thrown the spoilers out, which lets us get to 250 knots. The main reason for doing this is as we come down through 10,000 feet, we'll need to be below 250 knots. So I'm going to take the spoilers away now. We've helped it decelerate. It will continue doing it just by keeping the nose up. We've just assisted. So we've gone above the profile, look, it's starting to descend again. So I'm going to just throw the spoilers out to help it maintain the profile. Put them back away again. Have a look outside. So there is New Delhi. There's a fair amount of pollution, isn't there? You see it like a smog hanging over the city. Okay, we're a little bit above profile, but it's coming back towards it, so I'm not going to panic too much. Coming down to 16,000 feet, we're aiming for 7, because that's the turning point where we go to manual. So when we come through here, I'm probably going to go to selected heading mode to illustrate that although this looks like we're going to cut straight back in the real world you wouldn't. This is manual. You would have carried on along here until ATC instructed you. We remember we removed the manual step from the route. I don't know if there's any waypoints out here we could use to illustrate that. So no, there's nothing in line, is there? It would have been nice if there was one over here. We could fly towards the VOR, of course. But we can just fly the heading, because obviously the vectored instructions from ATC would just tell the pilot, you know, can you continue this heading? And then they would tell them to turn an angle and turn again until they pick up the ILS. So let's just double check that while we have the opportunity. We've got a few moments. So ILS 29 right is 111.1, 283 degrees. So let's go and have a look on the nav radio, 111.1. We're saying 282 there, but there we go. 3-degree glide slope, so it's already got all that information. We've gone way above the profile, look. So let's go and help the aeroplane get back down. So spoilers out. You can see that here, look. So I'm helping the aeroplane get down a bit more steeply with the spoilers, so it can glide far more steeply, coming down at 3,000 feet a minute instead of sort of 1,1700 feet a minute. Again, it depends on air pressure and, or not pressure, but air density. Here comes the profile, we're catching back up with it, look. So if we pull the range back in again, and we'll pull the range in this side to get kind of a slightly higher range view, but then we've got the detail on this side. So we're coming down towards, so we can see there's a deceleration it wanted to do as well, which is just doing to get down to 210 knots. So we're going quite slowly. Actually, we could probably do this quite easily and, you know, not fly. But I think it would be nice to show you going to selected heading mode. So we're coming down towards 10,000 feet, so we're going to go and put the landing lights on. We're back down to the profile. And you can see there's New Delhi. Whoa, look at the size of that city. Should we look at it from outside for a moment? Huge. Stretches out right the way down there, look. Either side of the river. It's huge. Okay. We're still on track on profile with speed. We've come down to 10,000 feet now. Landing lights are on. We're below 250 knots. Target airspeed is 210 knots. So the next target, if we don't go selected heading, now I'm going to go selected to show you this. So what you can do, if you roll this, it will point the direction you're going immediately. Yeah? So if I then pull it towards me, I'm saying I'm doing this now, not you. So I'm using selected heading mode. So you can see it says heading here. Notice it also went to vertical speed mode at the same moment it did that. So essentially I'm in control of the descent rate. So I could say I want 1200 feet or 1500 feet a minute. Yeah? So it's up to me. Obviously when it gets to the target altitude it will go to altitude hold automatically, but we don't want to do that. We want to... where's the plan? Yeah, we want to get to 3000 feet for CF29 right, but we have to be 7000 feet or above before we get there. So we're going to fly straight through this. So it's holding at 7,000 automatically. It's stopped the descent. So we'll give it our next target, which will be 3,000 feet. And we'll say, tell the airplane to do it 1,000 feet a minute. And we're continuing on in a straight line, because then remember this was vectors, or a manual step. So at this point we're following guidance from the tower, although we're obviously not. But you get the idea. So we are slow enough now, instead of using spoilers at all, to put the first stage of flaps out. So you can see the flap never exceeds speeds here. So 230 knots for flaps 1. 230 knots is about 15 knots ahead of where we are. There's a power station down there. Look. So then we are going to command the airplane. We're going to say, pretend the controllers have told us to fly 180 degrees, for example. So we're going to turn right 180. So we're descending to 3,000 feet. We could tell the airplane to come down at 1,500 feet a minute. The controllers may even tell us to fly 21 or 210 degrees, I should say, sorry. 210, as they would say it. So notice once we have pulled it once, we don't have to keep pushing and pulling. It's just as we turn the knob, we're essentially telling the airplane, so we're moving the marker. I think that's the airport over there, isn't it? So down to 4,500 feet. So they may give us another vector of say 240 degrees. We're going to get a pretty landing, aren't we? So I'm just doing this as an example really to show you what you can do. You can have an element of fun in flying the sim. So we're going to put the landing system switches on as well, which gives us the extra information from the ILS now. So you can see it's picked up the signal, but they are off to the left and above us. The glide slope is above us at the moment. So when we get to this turn and turn towards the airfield, we should see these markers start to slide into view.
2,500.
And again, on the chart, do we have anything about raised points? Yeah, we've got some points along here. 1,500 feet, 1,400 feet, high points along the route. There's another one there, look. 11 or 1,200 feet. So it's doing a FN614, which isn't for a while yet. Oh, that was there. So we really need to be coming down off the speed, look, because we've gone manual essentially. So we're going to say bring the speed down now to 190 knots, and then you're into just bleeding the speed off, ready for approach really. That really is foggy, isn't it? So you'll see in a moment this will start to move. And it wants us to put the barometric pressure in, look, to get it accurate to the ground. So let's go and double check that quickly. So if we go open the airport weather, it should be 1008. So it's not going to affect us tremendously, but it has a little bit. We're a bit late doing that. Let's go and drop the range on this further. See, if we wanted to, at this point, to see we're 13 miles out. If we wanted to, we could go straight for CF29 right. So we could change this route. And we could go back to insert, go from current position, go straight there. And there we go. Let's see what the airplane will do with that. There's the glide slope. Some interesting that we're not showing. Here it comes. Look, here comes the localizer. So before we hit them, we can go for approach mode. And now we're back on a that's interesting, look, it revved up rather than, it made a mistake basically with the guidance of the engines. It's now realised that it's slowing us down, so we can go and extend the flaps further, and we can get the gear down and put the lights on. And there's the runway just coming out of the murk right in front of us. And the airplane approach mode has kicked in, look, it's pulling us now onto the localizer. Because we went back to guided mode on the speed, on the heading, the speed can be automatically controlled as well. The altitude doesn't mean anything now because we're on approach mode. We've locked onto the glide slope, so we could literally bring that down to 100 feet if we wanted to. It means nothing. The glide slope is guiding us. Should we have a look from outside? Looks the part, doesn't it? Okay, so let's press shift space and head tracking on. We need to arm the ground spoilers. Cabin's ready, everything's green over here. And I'm going to turn the autopilot off. Now to make it shut up, I need to press the little red button on the joystick. So this is me in control now. So I'm just going to do this for a bit of fun so I don't lose the practice completely. So we're leaving auto throttle on, I'm just going to guide it in. So we're looking at the glide slope there. A little bit low. don't have much experience flying this plane, flown it once before.
$500.
So the wind is abated, look, almost completely. It's still a bit bumpy though, the wind is wandering around and it is affecting the aeroplane.
300.
So we're pretty much on the numbers at the moment, although as I say that, famous last words, look, we're moving around. So I'm going to ignore, now we're visual, I'm going to ignore the glide slope a little bit and just bring it in.
50, 40, 30.
So I've pulled the engines back to 0.
20.
Yeah, we're floating.
10.
But that's just practice. And we're down. And reverse. And spoilers out. And flaps are full. And come off the reverses now. And wheel brakes. And spoilers can come back up. And we can take the high-speed exit. So it's just practice with the floating to avoid it doing that. Hey, have we got an AI plane doing donuts over there, or is it a human? It's hard to tell. So we'll just bring ourselves to a stop for a moment and put the flaps back up. Before we get back to the gate, we'll go and put the APU on. We'll turn the landing lights off. Where's the floodlight in this? I can never remember. I'm not going to worry too much. We can always wind the time back, can't we? Should we do that now? There we go. So, Alt 8, there we go. We'll go the other side of the gate, shall we? Does look pretty good, doesn't it? Even with a stock airport, with that atmospheric modelling and the lighting model, it's really nice. Oh, hello, we've got a head-on with some. Oh no, it's an AI plane, hasn't it? It just swapped directions. Okay, maybe this was a mistake. We'll go to the far terminal over there. Yeah, there's people spawning in and out here, aren't there? Is he going anywhere? Okay, we're going to take an unscheduled trip across the grass. Did we get the dust kicked up from the grass? No. horrify this little twin. Is it a DA62 down there? We're about to surprise the life out of. Okay, so we are on the ground. Let's go and turn some of this stuff off. So we've got the APU up and running, so it will bus transfer over to it automatically, so we can kill the engines. And because we've now killed the engines, we can now go and turn the fuel tanks off. We can turn the crew oxygen off. We can go and turn some of the guidance off. And just trying to think what else. The lights, obviously. So the taxi light can come off. It should have been on taxi already. That's my bad. I'd already done the landing lights when we came in. Strobes off. Seatbelt signs off. So let people go and make a run for it. I think we're just about there. So I'll leave power to the airplane on the APU for the moment. Let's see if we can get the jet bridge working. So I've not played with some of this stuff in the new sim yet. Doors, so we can open various doors. So if we ask for the chocks, can we do deboarding then? Is that in as part of load sheet maybe? No. Maybe it doesn't. I wonder if we can do it through the radios. So that's in here, isn't it? Yeah. Wrong button. Tune Delhi ground. Ground services. Request. No, it hasn't got it, has it? I was just hoping we could somehow get the jet bridge to come over. But I don't think we can. Unless we just open the door and that does it for us. Or maybe it won't while the APU is running. So while the APU is running, have we got external power? We can request it, can't we, over here? So if we ask for GPU, and then we can switch over to external, then we can turn off the APU. And will that change any options available to us? Maybe it might change this. It's doing boarding. Okay, I guess we can do the same trick, can't we? So it's got the wrong title, but you get the plan. We get the jet bridge by selecting that. Yeah, look at the size of that DA62 next to this thing. And there's a Huey underneath the other wing, look. It is a monster, isn't it, this plane? There we go. So we've got the jet bridge one way or another. Very cool. Even the 7.3 over there looks tiny next to it, doesn't it? Is that a Phenom? There's an A320. Very cool. So, welcome to Delhi. It's a big airport, isn't it? It'd be worth getting the proper one of this from... I'm not sure who's got it. I don't know if have Inibuilds got Delhi? Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that. That's my first flight back for a couple of weeks with this ridiculous illness I've had. So yeah, if you want... Yeah, if anybody who wants it to go completely cold and dark, is fairly straightforward. We just go and turn off the external power up here. We're now on batteries only. So notice that has switched off that system already. And then you just turn the batteries off. and it goes dead. Interestingly though, on the Boeings, the MCP, or FGCP as it's called in some of the Airbuses, stays on for a while because it's a separate unit and it has its own power. But in these ones it goes off with the rest of the cockpit. So we just have a quick wander around while we can. So make ourselves taller, just grew a foot. And you can pull the curtains. I didn't realise you could pull the curtains for quite some time. And we can have a look down through how the other half live. Or how the 1% live, I should say. And go back down towards economy, where I would normally be. This is very cool, isn't it? There's economy seating. They still get screens. It's very, very clever. You think about it, the curtains are a crafty trick to avoid drawing what's beyond them. Back to the back of the aeroplane. I wonder if we can open the doors from inside. Should we try it? Do the levers work? No, I think you have to control... Oh, you can click on the door, which then stands you on the ground outside the aeroplane to walk around. I guess that's predictable. That fits in with the new way of things in the sim, doesn't it? Look at the quality of the rendering of this thing. It's just nuts, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. No, I haven't even scratched it. It can be used again. That's always a plus, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant though, isn't it? Looks amazing. Oh, nearly tripped over the wheels. That would have just have sealed my fate for the week, wouldn't it, really? Did the whole flight more or less okay, and then trip over one of the landing trucks and break my neck. Oh, well, here he comes, he's going to tell me off. He said, "What are you doing? Get away from those landing gear." He hasn't got a sense of humour either, has he? She doesn't even want to look at me. No, she doesn't look impressed either. There we go. So, I am going to leave it there. Oh, hello. We got a bit of a graphical anomaly going on there. So to get back in the cockpit, I would have to press Shift and Space, wouldn't I? There we go. So I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That was a flight from Dubai over to New Delhi. And we tried out something I'd never tried, which was the time acceleration in the A350. It worked really well. So that's going to make some of the longer flights much more demoable for me when doing live streams, so they don't just go on for hours. But yeah. Really, really like this aeroplane. I think it's by far the best of the modern airliners in the simulator at the moment. But obviously now the Sim Update 1 floodgates have opened, there's going to be a deluge of aeroplanes, and I imagine the PNDGs are going to be hot off the presses fairly soon because of it. Because they were waiting for functionality that's in Sim Update 1. So we'll have to wait and see, won't we? Anyway. I really will go this time, so see you all again soon. I'll update the notes on the video of where you can get the procedure from that I followed to start the airplane up, which helps you go through quickly and easily without missing anything. Okay, I'll see you again soon. Take care.